Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room because he was a whistleblower, and they took him down to the basement room and they took his life, the arms room, which is a soundproof room. This was on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And today is May 11th, 2026, because we want our son's remains. Because after they took his life on Fort Bliss, they stole his body and they trafficked his body to Juarez. This is the criminal cartel network that has this funeral fraud, VA benefits fraud, um, organ harvesting, baby harvesting, selling babies in the black market. Um, where this is the same group that just recently 2 CIA agents were killed in an unauthorized uh, operation in Chihuahua, Mexico. This is where they have the AI tower that they spent so much money on, pointed straight at Fort Bliss. It's 20 stories, high rise building with a helipad on the top of it. Um, you have to look it up. It's just shocking when you see that it comes from a treasonous treaty between the Chihuahuan governor, narco governor Maru Campos of the El Chapo arm of the Sinaloa cartel with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. You heard me right. He's the one that signed it. He's the one that made this treasonous treaty. And it doesn't give me pleasure to say it. It's like heartbreaking. It's totally heartbreaking that our country would engage in something like that. And I'm sure in Mexico they feel the same way about Maru Campos. Matter of fact, uh, sh- she's under investigation, and the whole inquiry is this week for treason. For treason because of the CIA agents that were killed in an unauthorized operation that Mexico City, the president of Mexico, knew nothing about. And it's illegal for, what they just want to turn themselves into kings and queens or whatever. They think that they can supersede the Mexican law and supersede the U.S. Constitution and just make themselves like presidents of the country and federal agents of the country when they're governors. They're governors of the state of Chihuahua and the state of Texas. And so, you know, Mexico is responding, absolutely responding to that. And let me see if I can get on, make sure that everyone can see me and I can see the comments. There we go. Sometimes my phone, let me tell you, this phone is probably going to be in a museum one day. I think my computer and the phone will be in a museum one day. I tell you, doing this 2,108 days, and a lot of that for the first few years was 2 times a day, because, the information was needed so bad. We were trying to and attempting to, and I think we succeeded. I know we succeeded in earning people's respect and trust, and that's why so much information has come in, and we want to thank everybody so much for it, because there has been a real problem, hasn't there, with the agencies and institutions of our countries on both sides of the border. They have been infiltrated by the cartel. They have been really designated, rightfully so, terroristic organizations. And they, people don't think of the United States having a cartel, but the Sinaloa and the CJNG and the Juarez cartel were given access to the United States to operate, live, and do business in the United States, uh, absolutely giving them the access. And that was done by the El Paso cartel. And people haven't heard about the El Paso cartel too much. But it includes a Mormon faction that it makes sense when you think of it, because you have this history over 100 years. Um, uh, Absolutely over 100 years. I'm doing math in my head, um, because this Mormon faction that were American left the United States because they wanted to be polygamous. They wanted to have lots of wives, right? They wanted to have lots of wives. And now, with in the 100 years that, you're allowed to have lots of husbands, lots of wives, lots of husbands. And it has gotten very, very perverse. Um, the That's not me saying that. That is the court records. The court records have shown that it has gotten very perverse. Um, uh, you know, some women, um, clearly they were trafficked into that situation, because when crimes happen and they'd ask these women, where do you come from? They didn't even know where they came from. They didn't even know where they came from. And of course, in alliance um, with this John of God character down in Brazil, with the baby farms, right? And here today, President Trump was having a maternal day, right? A maternal day, all for women, what women are, the miracle that women can do that men cannot do, um, to uh, have life grow inside them, um, deliver a beautiful human being. Um, and, that has been so dirtied, right? So attacked. Um, the absolute glory of it, right? And I've been very privileged to be able to participate in that. Um, it's just amazing. It's amazing experience. It's out of this world experience. It's so godly, right? It's so godly. It's not of yourself, that it's of God, to birth a child. Um, and it's something very special, but women, of course, need help, and they don't want to admit that. We need a family. We need um, a husband, a father, and they are just absolutely necessary. And we've had a culture that has belittled everything, belittled and dirtied everything. The 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 family, the institution of God, right? The family is the institution of God. One man, one woman, having children, building a family. It's such a blessing. Uh, when I say it's an institution of God, what more should I say? That just clarifies it all, doesn't it? It's like the sacraments, right? Um, they always attack the sacraments. The sacraments are the way of life. We, as Christians, as those that say a creed, there was an attack on the creeds, no creed but Christ, which is nonsense, absolutely nonsense. You have to know what you believe, and you have to know as a Christian, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the Athanasius Creed. You need to know what you believe, and of course, these sacraments, how now shall I live? And that's how you shall live, right? According to every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, and by the sacraments that are, a lot of people say sola scriptura, but the every word that proceeds from the mouth of God is creation itself. Um, so, it gets into a lot of theology, and that has been attacked and attacked, and um, Mormons are not Christians, okay? Mormons are not Christians. They're Mormon. That's fine. That's very fine if they want to be Mormon. But through this whole thing, they have, through the paperwork and everything, they have misidentified themselves as Christian. But they don't believe in the Trinity. They don't believe in the Apostles' Creed. They don't believe in the Nicene Creed. They don't believe in the Athanasius Creed. And clearly, this group with the polygamists don't believe in the sacrament of marriage, okay? Because the sacrament of marriage is very defined, and you can't, who are you as man to try to redefine what God has defined, right? So, and it's fine. They left the United States because the United States made polygamy illegal, and they went to Chihuahua, Mexico. They went across the border to Chihuahua, Mexico, and they established colonies there, which is wonderful, which is fine. Which, if Mexico makes polygamy legal, then that's great. That's wonderful. I'm not, you know, uh, but there's been problems, and the court records show the problems. And then they're dual citizens, right? Because they leave the United States, but they're dual citizens, like the Romneys. Matter of fact, Mitt Romney almost became the president of the United States. And I think it was his grandfather had 6 wives, from Chihuahua, Mexico. Okay, from Chihuahua, Mexico. Same thing with Connell Wetton. His family comes from the colonies, okay? And the same thing with a lot of people in the CIA and the FBI. They really recruit from that, which if you're dual citizen, or if your loyalty is to Mexico, if your loyalty is to the colonies, which in this case, it's the colonies, a big faction of it has turned into a cartel. Okay, has turned into a cartel, and they join the cartels. I guess, if you can't live with them, join them, or something like that. They join the cartels, and that's why you see these problems today. It's a huge problem because it's an infiltration into our intelligence community and our FBI with people that are not. Uh, there's no creed for them, right? There's no creed. If there's no creed, if they don't subscribe to a creed, then they because the Constitution is clearly based on Christian creeds, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the Athanasius Creed. And so if that doesn't, if that's not what you're loyal to, then you're very easily going to break the Constitution, not abide by the Constitution. And if you don't care about oaths, because taking an oath and swearing by an oath is a very Christian thing too, very Christian roots there, then you will break them because you don't, that's not your faith. That's not, which is fine, but you're taking those oaths and then you're not abiding by them. And that, I believe that's a crime. I think that's a crime to not abide by your oath. And so that needs to be, you need to be held accountable, and and suffer the consequences of that. And part of this breaking of the oaths, being in the CIA, and look at Alejandra de la Vega Foster. She's a wealthy El Paso cartel operative, dual agent, uh, dual citizen, right? And she took the oath. She swore the oath. We have the big picture that looks like she's doing a Heil Hitler thing, but it's not. It's a swearing to the Mexican law, to Mexico's sovereignty. But at the same time, she was in Texas with Governor Abbott's administration swearing to the Texas Constitution. Okay. This is a dual agent, and they only do this if oaths don't mean anything to them, because clearly she broke both oaths. Okay? Clearly, Mexico means nothing to her. Clearly, Texas means nothing to her. The United States means nothing to her. She's there to exploit. She has a different agenda. And this is what has clearly been confirmed through the evidence what is going on at the border. And this is why there was problems at the border. They weren't abiding by being a good neighbor, right? Like, a good neighbor, good neighbors have a fence. Right? There's nothing wrong with having a fence. I have a fence in my yard, and I have a very good relationship with my neighbors. Very good. It doesn't mean that I don't like them, that I'm not friendly with them, that I don't invite them over for barbecues, that we don't go and do things together. The fence is the boundary of respect, and of duty. What's in my property, I have a duty to take care of. And the same with my neighbor, and I don't get into his business. He doesn't get into my business, you know. So boundaries are very important to peace and getting along, and defining, right, defining what your duty is, just like a creed is, just like defining what you believe is. And this has been just like defining what a woman is and what a man is, and what their roles are in this world and in their families, as a mother and a father and as a child, um, and as a sibling. What is your role? What is your duty? What are the boundaries, right? It Boundaries give respect. Boundaries give uh, a law. And when you have a law, you have peace, um, and you have integrity, and you have honor. And, you know, when you have what Alejandro de la Vega does, it's no dignity, there's no respect, there's no honor, there's no loyalty. And therefore, you can have a border where it's trafficking the most evil things, stealing the most evil things, money laundering, embezzlement, of course, and organ harvesting, exploiting migrants, exploiting dead migrants, like through this funeral fraud, where it's transnational. They were going back and forth over the border. They were getting humanitarian on both sides of the border for like an unidentified dead migrant, and then of course the organ harvesting, and they know all about it. How long a person has to be dead to get their heart, to get their lungs, or their whatever, their liver, and and how long for the skin, how long for the corneas, and all about these illegal C sections, and um, eh, the evil was just, um, is so, um, perverse, because there's no respect for law, there's no respect for countries' boundaries, for family boundaries. If you're a polygamist, you're always looking for a girlfriend, right? You're always looking for a girlfriend. Um, and so there's no boundaries, right? There's no boundaries, and it gets very perverse. It gets very young. It becomes pedophilia and child sexual exploitation is leads into pornography, because every bit of pornography, every kind of pornography leads to child sexual exploitation, because because it does. That's what every uh, any kind of study on it, every pornography is child sexual um, exploitation, and then it leads into incest, and this is where Lilani Hart's um, affidavit is so clear, right? That is what exactly the Hart family, their polygamous family. She confessed to the incest in the family and to the facilitation of the worst type of crimes against children, against her own children, and of course, possession of pornography. So that all goes together because there's no boundaries, right? There's no law, there's no boundaries, there's no respect for each other, there's no loyalty at all, no dignity. And so, if you have no dignity, then there's no dignity for life. And then you have Dallas Hart, the son, who is the prime suspect in the murder of our son, who absolutely had loyalty and dignity and honor and courage, and had boundaries. And the boundaries um, were clearly um, being breached in Qatar. And Richard told us that they were being breached in Qatar. The boundaries, the laws, um, it was very, very bad. And it was very bad in the barracks, and it was very bad on Fort Bliss. And he also witnessed the military involvement in the Walmart mass shooting. And the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated, and the crime scene was staged. So there's tampering with everything, and that's not me saying it. Okay, that's not me saying it. That's JT. That's Juan Torres, the Texas Ranger in charge of the case. That is other witnesses that were part of the case. And then it was evidence like Michael G. Mayella, the junior, because his father, Michael F. Mayella, the federal courthouse manager in El Paso, he also no honor, no loyalty, because he should have recused himself, because his family is Patrick Crucius. His daughter is the daughter-in-law of the sister-in-law of Patrick Crucius. Okay, um, Alexa is Patrick Crucius's sister-in-law. All right, and they should have absolutely recused themselves, but they didn't. They embedded themselves, and they embedded themselves before the event even happened. Michael G. Mayella, the brother, who is a trained cybersecurity technician, was at the Walmart cybersecurity. He had a cybersecurity job at Walmart. Okay, the very places, the cameras, right? The cameras. Why wasn't there more security there that day? Because Walmart sells guns, right? Walmart sells guns. There should have been security, right? And people shooting back. And I think some did. That's why one of the shooters, we believe, the evidence indicates very, very strongly, uh, confirms it really, that one of the shooters were one of the ones killed that day. But Michael Mayella wasn't just cybersecurity for Walmart. He was in the FBI. He was in the FBI field office in El Paso, right there, the investigating agency of the Walmart mass shooting. And there he was. And there he still is. He still is working in the El Paso FBI office right now. Right now. Um, I know it's hard to believe. That is um, uh, how they're not loyal, that they don't take their oath seriously, that they don't take the laws of the land seriously, that they don't even take their FBI uh, position seriously to do what they're doing, right? They have no creed. They have no creed and they have no integrity and they have no loyalty. They have no patriotism then. And and I don't want to stop there. He was also at the very time of the Walmart mass shooting embedded in the DA's office, the prosecuting office for the Walmart mass shooting. Right, with John Briggs. He was working in the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office with John Briggs. And John Briggs, the Assistant District Attorney, now we have evidence that confirms that he deliberately deleted files and hid who Michael G. Mayella is and where he was working. And so they absolutely tampered with files, deleted files, and we know um, that with the purchase, because he wanted to get Bill Hicks in that office, right? He wanted to get the elected official out and bring in Bill Hicks through Texas Governor Greg Abbott to appoint him during a recess. He was a recess appointment, so there was no scrutiny at all because he's such the bottom of the barrel, right? He's such the bottom of the barrel. He should never have been appointed to that position. He has so many problems and lawsuits, even and everything, debt and debt. And all of a sudden, he gets into the DA's office as a usurper because he can't possibly sign the anti bribe a statement of officer. And so, it was a usurper, and so they could clearly attack President Trump. They wanted to attack President Trump. They wanted to tamper with the election. And then, of course, you got Joe Biden in, and Joe Biden is known for the auto pen, right? The auto pen, which is also tampering, which is also, um, just the perfect example of this whole thing, from the polygamy to the no creed, to no respect, to no law. And then you've got the auto pen, somebody, signing for Joe Biden and not Joe Biden, right? And through it all, through a tampered and uh, election system, and we can tell you through all of this evidence that there is so much tampering, even in the Delia Briones's clerk's office, because of the death certificates, right? You can't have 400 plus dead bodies rotting away in a Plenitud crematorium that's totally part of a transnational funeral home fraud system, that are collecting on both sides of the border, advertising on both sides of the border, and not have tampered death certificates, right? And it's just so if there's tampered death certificates, is there tampered birth certificates in order to get citizenship? Or, there's so much tampering with documents. And now we know that there was even deliberate deletion of documents. And we know in our son's case, there was the whitewashing because they couldn't totally delete things because we got them so quick. But they deleted a lot of information, um, whitewashed it. I think whitewashed would be a good way. And I'm sure they deleted because, they never gave us his phone. They never gave us his game playing Sony console, or whatever you call that thing. They didn't give us his car. They didn't give us his computer. They made excuses for everything. And so there was a lot of tampering. And, so when people say, oh, they wouldn't tamper, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to take the rose colored glasses off your eyes because they were 100% tampering. Tampering in Mexico and tampering in the United States. Okay? They were absolutely working both borders, both countries with disrespect, with disloyalty from the inside, and really exploiting and embezzling and money laundering and trafficking and all of the documents for humanitarian aid and all of that are absolutely subject to suspicion of tampering. Okay, suspicion of tampering because there was so much tampering going on and deletion because they don't care about it. They don't care about it. I mean, this is just a little something um, that sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't care about my birthday." And I told our children, I said, you better care about your birthday and you better celebrate your birthday because Jesus made it possible to celebrate your birthday. And we put crowns on because he made us princes and princesses, right? Princes and princesses. That comes from Jesus because he is King of Kings and we are his children. And so we are princes and princesses. And before he made it possible, you were nothing. You were nothing unless you were a prince or a princess. And your birthday, you probably didn't even know your birthday. But when baptism came along, and your birthday, your baptism was celebrated, and then every year you could have a party, a big cake, great barbecue, whatever you wanted to do, you needed to celebrate because you it was it defined you, right? It's a definition. You have a name. You have a time and a place that God put you in this earth. It's a beautiful thing. He knit you together, and on that day he brought you into the world, and it's something to be celebrated. So never say you don't want to be celebrated. And this all comes together. It all comes together if you don't care about births, about life, about defining things like laws, boundaries of countries, of the boundaries between a governor and a federal officer like the president. You can't be a governor and cross the boundary and do what the job is of a president, a federal officer. You see? And Maru Campos and Governor Abbott had no respect for boundaries. And that causes chaos, and chaos causes death and mayhem and really ugliness. And so, um, the tampering of documents is this mayhem, is this mess, because those people's bodies that they just said were unidentified migrants, or maybe they were victims, right? They were victims of the organ harvesting, or the illegal C-sections, or from the cartel narco battles. Um, and this was the place where they dropped the bodies off, right? Uh, and then they were nobody. Were they nobody, or did they take their name to take their social security or their benefits with their bodies just piled up and rat infested, filthy, no potable water, no air condition, just rotting away? Sacrilegious. It's sacrilegious. So, that's why this case is so serious, so serious, because it um, shows a cartel network from the El Paso cartel to the Sinaloa cartel. And I heard that El Mayo had some boundaries. He would not, he refused to traffic uh, in meth, right? In meth. That's what I heard. And in child trafficking, so he had these little boundaries that he did. He was a criminal, absolutely criminal. He needs to be in prison, but he had some boundaries, right? And the El Chapo, Maru Campos arm of the cartel didn't have any boundaries at all. And they've really proved that, haven't they? And that's called treason. That's called treason. No boundaries. And that's why polygamy, to me, is treason against the family. Just like adultery is treason against the family. To me, that's how I view adultery and polygamy. But that's by a person that has that says the creeds, that believes in the creeds, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the Athanasius Creed, and is a Christian. But if you're not a Christian, then you might not think that that is treason against the family. So I think Mexico has to, the government, the people have to decide. And clearly, um, I think it's a breach in security, because it leads to a lot of perversion and a lot of children getting hurt, a lot of women getting hurt, and no respect for life. No respect for life. I mean, they don't have the death penalty in Mexico, and yet they're shooting up Rocha's house. They're writing rest in peace on Javier Corral's house. You know, they have no respect. It's just all threats and, um, bullying and everything. They don't have respect for the property. That's not their house. And yet they don't seem to mind to deface it, to shoot bullets in it. I'm telling you, it just leads to mayhem, and it leads a lot of greed, because in that mayhem, the thing that gives you some sort of safety that you think is the money. It doesn't bring you happy. And let me tell you, a lot of people think, oh, they have all this money and they're happy. They are not happy. I can tell you this right now by reading, hundreds of different files. They are not happy. They are miserable, absolutely miserable. The money buys them security or impunity. because they don't want to go to jail, right? That's why they want the money. Um, they can't find worth in themselves because they don't respect life, so they find worth in the money that they can say that's in their bank account. So that's why this case is so important, um, because of all the tampering and all the deliberate deletion, the manipulation of our countries. No respect. And so it's really wonderful to see President Scheinbaum be driven, because every one of these individuals have to be backed up by the people. Otherwise, they can't do anything. And she is absolutely having this investigation, and there's calls for Maru Campos to step down. And, clearly what she did was treason. So, we'll see what happens on the American side. President Trump took the first steps to do that. It's a very important step, and that is to look at 53, I believe it's 53 different embassies. So, and we know for a fact that in El Paso things are happening. Okay. There's a chill. There's a chill. There's things happening. And on Fort Bliss too. So, there's not very many leaks at all. I don't think there's too many leaks coming out of President Trump's administration. So, we're going to continue to work very hard to get this accountability, to get our son's remains. We have that very good news that Jose Luis Arellano Caron has lost his bond, has lost his protection. Arm press or whatever, I don't know the Spanish word for it, but it is like a bond. He has lost that, and now he is officially a fugitive. And guess where he is? He's a fugitive in the United States, and most likely El Paso. And he needs to be held accountable. So that's, we're getting there. We're getting there. And we will do what we need to do to get the accountability, because there's too much at stake. Our countries are at stake. And these are the hard decisions and crimes that we need to face and we need to deal with. So, and we want, of course, our son's remains, because they tampered with the remains. They tampered with death certificates. They tampered with autopsies. We have 3 autopsy numbers. They tampered with it all. So, absolutely with his file. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming on so late. And, we will be back tomorrow, God willing. It's just been a really lot of things going on behind the scenes. And so we just love you so much for coming on this late. And we ask only that you share, share, share. And we're very grateful when you do. We see it. And please keep writing messages and everything. We're getting quite a bit, which is very good news. But there's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't really get to answer. But we absolutely see it. and we just really, really appreciate it. And don't ever quit. Don't ever, ever quit. Things are going very, very well. And yeah, we can't stop now.